Former area teacher charged with trying to stab her husband to death. A Scott County judge today found Patricia Oster not guilty of reason by insanity. Police arrested Oster back in May after her husband was stabbed in his sleep. The popular retired teacher from Long Grove was examined by doctors from both sides and was ultimately diagnosed with a delusional disorder. Prosecutors say they agree with the judge's verdict.
Mostly because we have not only the defense expert, their doctor, but also our own state's doctor saying that, yes, legally at the time this crime was committed, she was insane.
Oster will remain in a mental facility run by the Iowa Department of Corrections for treatment. 4 people are in police custody after a shooting in Davenport. Salem Jersky, Gary Williams, Clem Kirk, and Dylan Reyes all face charges. Police say they responded to Genesis East around 10:30 last night. Doctors were treating a patient with a gunshot wound there. After interviewing the victim, police made a traffic stop and arrested 4 men. A 52-year-old Rock Island man is dead after a mining accident. Investigators say Ronald Trick Jr. died after a roof collapsed at Linwood Mining and Mineral around 10 last night. Trick was pronounced dead at the scene. No one else was hurt. Cleanup crews in northern Iowa are trying to contain more than 100,000 gallons of diesel fuel. The spill happened after the pipeline, which carries fuel from North Dakota to Illinois, ruptured yesterday. Officials say weather has impacted the cleanup. This winter storm has turned much of the spill into slush. The sheriff's department says there isn't a health risk for anyone living around that area. Today is a big anniversary for one of the worst winter storms in northern Illinois history. The blizzard of 1967 started on this day 50 years ago. It was the single greatest snowfall in Chicago history. When the storm ended, 23 inches of snow was on the ground. The storm paralyzed much of northern Illinois, closing roads and airports. 50,000 cars were abandoned throughout the city of Chicago. And some more flakes could be in our future. Storm Track 8 Chief Meteorologist James Zahara is in the Weather Center with our first check of the forecast. Hi, James. Thanks, James. Scott County Republicans spent some time with Iowa's next governor this afternoon. Lieutenant Governor Kim Reynolds stopped in Davenport. She's ready to become Iowa's first female governor once the current governor, Terry Branstad, likely becomes the U.S. ambassador to China. Reynolds says she'll continue the Republican agenda in Des Moines, including plans to defund Planned Parenthood.
That will ensure that no taxpayer dollars go to providers that provide abortions. And
Reynolds says that there are more than 200 providers that can offer high-quality health care to Iowa women. So far, there's no set timeline on when she'll take over as governor. It all depends on how quickly Governor Branstad gets confirmed by Congress. President Donald Trump spent his 7th day in office with members of Congress at the Republican retreat in Philadelphia. There, the president and lawmakers worked on plans to repeal and replace Obamacare, as well as reform the immigration system. President Trump spoke at the retreat, saying he's looking forward to being busy.
This Congress is going to be the busiest Congress we've had in decades, maybe ever.
GOP leaders and the president insist they're working together, but the Speaker of the House and Senate Majority Leader dodged a question when asked about escalating tensions between the U.S. and Mexico after a series of tweets over who would pay for the border wall.
I don't have any advice to give to the president about that issue.
We're going to see unconventional activities like tweets and things like that, and I think that's just something that we're all going to have to get used to.
On Twitter today, Trump called pardoned soldier Chelsea Manning an ungrateful traitor. He also tweeted this, saying the U.S. has a $60 billion trade deficit with Mexico and that NAFTA has been a one-sided deal. Trump followed that up by saying that if Mexico is, quote, unwilling to pay for the badly needed wall, then it would be better to cancel the upcoming meeting. And a few hours after those tweets, Mexico President Enrique Peña Nieto called off his meeting with President Trump. The two were scheduled to meet at the White House next Tuesday. This week, Trump signed an executive order to jumpstart construction of a U.S.-Mexico border wall. Pushing back, Mexico's president said again yesterday his country will not pay for any wall. A White House spokesman has just announced that Trump will call for a 20% tax on Mexican imports in order to fund the wall. Scientists from across the country are making plans for a March on Washington. Last weekend, thousands of women marched in Washington, Chicago, and other cities. Organizers of the March on Washington say they want a nonpartisan protest. They'll focus on topics like government funding for scientists, climate change, and evolution. A date for the march has not been set. Back in Illinois, senators continue to work on a budget agreement, but it's taking longer than previously promised. State senators say they won't be able to approve a budget by the end of the month. Instead, Senate leaders have told members to be ready for a vote in early February. The new plan is a bipartisan effort. It includes tax increases to drive down a multi-billion-dollar deficit. The lack of a state budget has forced Blackhawk College to make more cuts. Today, the college announced it will be eliminating 17 full-time positions. Lack of funding isn't the only reason. The college says enrollment for the spring semester is down 8% from last year. Blackhawk College has received only 35% of its expected funding for the past 2 years. Well, there's much more to come right here on WQAD News 8 at 9. Still ahead, street skiing, the unusual sport happening at an even more unusual time of year.